10 hours, but it's more than 8 hours.
It's more than 8 hours. Hey, look, we're at the Opera House.
Oh, dude, we're just doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their sticks out. They're doing the stick thing.
What is the Opera House like? Everyone's standing here taking selfies. So are we.
I thought it'd be whiter.
Wait a minute. There's
2 pieces.
2. Did you guys know that? I feel like
Everybody.
you only see the side of it ever. It's kind of funny. Nobody takes the picture from the side. You either take it from down there up or...
This is a really bad place to take a picture from. It's not very nice.
I know, but that's why.
It's real.
Coming to you live, the first to bring you this side of the Opera House. It's not the prettiest, but it's genuine. I like that.
That counts for nothing with anybody.
Like
Genuine. Mostly due to the fact we didn't get any sleep on the plane. We had been just camped out in the Botanic Gardens like a couple of hobos. Like, straight up hobos.
It's okay, maybe we just look like we're having a sleeping picnic.
We look like we're hobos. How long have we been sleeping here? An hour? Yeah.
But look at how beautiful it is where we are. Anyways, that's what we're doing today. And I feel like we should go see some stuff. But when you're enjoying your time, why not just enjoy your time, right?
It's Allison's bird. Who's assigned to us.
I think I sing a dingo.
It's not a dingo.
Is that a kangaroo?
Why do I wrangle so much?
You just love nature.
Give him some.
Oh my god.
This was a terrible idea.
Oh boy. How did they know?
So there's your travel advice. When in the Botanic Gardens, don't give the little hook-billed platypus birdie a chocolate biscuit. Everybody's gonna want a chocolate biscuit. So that was it. That was our entire Australia adventure. We went to Australia City, we went to Australia Gardens, we saw the Australia Opera House, we ate some Australia burgers at Australia Hungry Jack.
I had Subway.
This country, there's just something magical about the whole place. Like meeting the people.
I just feel like I know Australia.
I feel like that
an
too.
Entire country.
Like I know people road trip for months around here, but all you really need is 4 hours in downtown Sydney.
I feel like these 4 hours changed me.
I got a tattoo here. We'll come back. We'll come back when we have months and months to...
We'll come back. Essentially, this was a freebie because it was the same price as flying from Bali to Christchurch. So why not have a day layover in Sydney? So
see you a little bit.
Nice little freebie.
We had an awesome snooze in the park, and that's all we needed, really.
Got a little nap time in front of the Opera House. Sydney, you were great. We'll see you next time.
We'll be back. On our way to Christchurch from Thailand, we scheduled a few long layovers. This is the Conrad Bali. If you've watched any of our other episodes, you're well aware of the fact that the Conrad is not our typical accommodations. When it comes to hotels, we're usually deciding whether we want to share the room with a couple of rats or a pack of feral dogs. The Conrad Bali has neither. So, how did we end up here? Points from a reward credit card. Before we left on our trip, we strategically worked towards getting a few free hotel nights and using them to stay at a property that we could never otherwise afford. If you want to learn more about the card that got us to this specific hotel, there should be a magic floating link. We are like 5 days out from New Zealand right now. We cashed in some reward nights here at the Conrad. And we're gonna do some scoping out for Bali since we're gonna go here after New Zealand, but like, it is weird. We're planning for New Zealand. We're enjoying this lagoon pool and everything, which, I mean,
We're enjoying every second.
We're enjoying every second.
We already checked out of the hotel.
Literally in 5 days, we're going to be living in a minivan for 6 weeks, fighting sand fleas or something. Like, just everything's coming out of a cooler. We're going to the Salvation Army for blankets. But meanwhile, it's hard to put yourself in that state of mind when we're like, you know, lagoon pool.
And we've been in Asia since before Halloween in late October, so 4 months later. Back to some cold weather. And by cold, I mean like 60.
60. Well, it's going to be cold at night when we're in the minivan shivering, and it's like, thank you. It's going to be a big change from this. Oh, thanks for wardrobe right there.
But we'll remember this moment.
I hope so.
To remember.
I'm gonna remind you of this moment when
we're gonna miss this. There will be times we will miss this.
Anything else?
My phone's sitting on the table, so.
Oh, okay. Let's go get it.
Here's where we live. Say hi, Timmers.
Here we go. Now we're driving. Why are we driving? Well, remember when Tim's baggage got lost?
Ambulance, what is the exact address of the emergency?
It's at the Manu Bay Reserve on the corner of Manu Bay Road and Wainui Road.
Okay, yeah, I'm just going to ask some really quick questions while that help is being arranged.
Yep.
Now.
Yep.
How old is he?
27.
Is he breathing?
Yeah, he's breathing.
What is his name, please?
His name's Torrin.
And what is his last name?
Martin, M-A-R-T-Y-N.
Thank you. What is your name, please, sir?
My name's Ishka.
The idea of travelling by motorcycles around New Zealand has been something we've been dreaming of for a long time. The freedom of travelling on two wheels with just the essentials was something new and exciting for the both of us. New Zealand sits in the middle of the South Pacific, home to the Māori people who have been on the land for close to 1,000 years. The country is made up of two main islands, the north and the south, and the diversity between the two range from rolling green hills to ancient glaciers and just about everything in between. Our plan was to spend 3 months zigzagging between the islands in search of waves, adventure, and an experience that would fulfill a lifelong dream. Alright, let me go back a little. Ishka and I are best mates from Byron Bay, Australia. We've known each other since school days and have travelled the world together making surf films. But it hasn't always been like this. Before being a filmmaker, Ishka scratched through numerous other jobs, rustling up just enough money to support his travelling addiction. The same kind of goes for me too. I've always loved travelling and surfing amazing waves, so I'd save just enough time and money to get me to them. When Ishka and I began travelling together, one thing kind of led to another, and now both of our lives have grown around doing what we love. Coming from Australia, where just about everything is either trying to bite or sting you, we found ourselves at ease arriving in New Zealand. One of the things we were most looking forward to was the freedom that we'd have on two wheels. We were so grateful to have the new bikes for the journey that was ahead of us. But before we could get too far, there were a few minor adjustments we needed to make to the bikes. Thankfully, another good handy mate of ours helped us put together some surfboard racks and extra storage space that we knew would stand up to all the bouncing and rattling around. When it came down to packing our bikes, obviously finding the space for everything was going to be our first struggle, and the things that were going to take up the most space were the two things that were most important to us: surfboards and camera gear. I could only fit 2 boards on my bike, so I decided to take a 5.4 and a 7.6, with the idea and hope of having all conditions covered. On top of that, we still had to fit all the essentials. The plan was to travel light, but nothing felt light about the bikes when it was time to hit the road on our maiden voyage. When the time finally came that we were driving out of the city and into the countryside, we were so beside ourselves and on such a high with our new setups and what lay ahead of us.
Ambulance, what is the exact address of the emergency? see him?
It's at the Money Bay Reserve on the corner of Money Bay Road and Wainui Road.
Okay, does he have difficulty breathing or swallowing?
A little bit.
A little bit? Okay, good help has been arranged, okay?
Yep.
Right, so I want you to watch him very closely. Now, if he becomes less awake and he vomits,
Yep.
they turn him on his side.
Yep.
Okay, and if he gets worse in any way, call us back immediately with further instructions, okay?
Okay.
No problem, you take care.
Thank you. Bye bye. Oh no, they're going down there.
I was pretty rattled during that little episode. I had no idea what was going on at the time. I could hardly breathe, and there was a stage at the start where Ishka thought I could have died. Luckily, things improved pretty quickly.
How's your head?
How's it look? B to the face.
Not on.
As it turns out, I had a minor anaphylactic reaction to a bee sting. I had absolutely no idea that I was allergic to bees, and out of all the dangers I'd associated with a motorcycle journey, I didn't think bees would become my number one fear. It seemed pretty essential to get my hands on an EpiPen and some antihistamines for some peace of mind before we really got ourselves off the beaten track. It felt so nice to get a few days under our belt and cover some ground. We'd had a couple of waves with the crowds along the way, but finding perfect waves to share with just a friend is one of the best feelings a surfer can experience, and this whole trip was about getting as remote as possible. The feeling of contentment riding through the country surrounded by beautiful landscape with everything we needed on our saddles is something pretty special. As a surfer, our lives revolve around weather patterns, and it's so rare that all the elements line up in and out of the water. It's so special getting to experience those days, and it's a feeling that's hard to describe. But that day was one to remember, and we felt like we were exactly where we were supposed to be. We woke feeling excited and humbled, knowing that where we were on the East Cape is the first place to see the sunrise in the world, and we were surrounded by beautiful, sacred, Māori land.
I'm a trained operator.
You are. Know how to use this thing?
With pleasure.
We'd been linked with a friend of a friend who, ironically and quite comically, happened to run a little family business that literally puts honey on the table. I understand bees are extremely important to our ecosystem, and New Zealand is known for its Manuka honey, which is also known to be extremely healing and medicinal. But at the time I had other things on my mind. This is so skits.
Oh my god. Oh, he went down.
It was unbelievable. Good shit. Thanks, man. Shit. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All the best.
Contain.
I'm sure it would be awesome. Some. Oh,
Coming for it.
pushing your luck.
Yeah.
You can smell the honey.
You hang around here and you're going to get bees on your
Oh yeah, let's go. As ironic as it was at the time, it felt good to throw myself in the deep end. We learnt a lot from John, and that little insight gave me even more of an appreciation and respect for bees and their contribution to life as we know it. We needed to start making our way south as we had some ground to cover and weather on our tail. But as we were starting to learn, things don't always go to plan, and we had some hiccups along the way. No, 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 no! What have you done there? By the time we got ourselves back on track, the weather was no longer on our tail and had well and truly caught up with us. We passed a few warning signs, but couldn't imagine the weather getting any worse than it already was. By the time we were in the thick of it, we were just on top of this mountain pass and we'd never felt winds so strong and unpredictable. We didn't really know what to do at the time apart from just trying to get down the other side in one piece. This is stupid.
Soccer, what happened to you?
I just couldn't, like, as much as I leaned and steered, it just kept pushing me over.
So dangerous.
The scariest thing about wind is you can't really see it coming, and drive through a little pocket and there'll be absolutely just get blown halfway across the road. It's pretty scary. We stopped at the nearest pub for a debrief and a dry night's sleep, and we were lucky to time it with the biggest band in town and made a couple of new mates while we were at it.
We were getting up together. Sailor! Sailor! Because me and Tim haven't played together for a long time. We're playing in just one chord.
You put it in front of the lens.
Long lens.
So that's Tip and Hartley. Tip, T-I-P and Hartley. Hartley is very good. If they can turn it in. I find the feeling of riding a motorbike similar to the feeling of freedom when riding a wave in a lot of ways. They have their highs and lows, but that combination of the smells, the sounds, and that pure feeling of weightlessness in the open air, it's almost as if time stands still. I feel like it really brings you into the present moment. We pretty soon realised that our plans were often dictated by the weather and the waves. The only certainty we had was that our spot on the next ferry to the South Island was booked. The North Island was amazing, but neither of us had been to the South, and the feeling of going somewhere new and unfamiliar is something we were really looking forward to. We hadn't even set foot on the South Island yet, so just floating in, it felt like we were in a completely new country. The South Island is significantly larger than the North and makes up less than a quarter of the country's population. We were so looking forward to the open space ahead of us, and we're expecting the waves to be a whole lot more consistent. From what we gathered so far, we knew the water was also going to get a whole lot colder and the weather a whole lot wetter, but it was exciting and it really felt like the adventure was just getting started. You still filming?
Yeah. Probably the best footage we're going to get for the next week, so I might as well keep rolling.
The novelty of the South wore pretty quickly, as our first few days weren't exactly the welcome we were hoping for. But it was nothing that a couple of cups of morale couldn't easily fix.
While our first few days in the south were wet and cold and the surf wasn't exactly pumping, these perfect little waves and the feeling of surfing somewhere for the first time with nobody else around was just as fulfilling as anything else. And it was the whole reason why we were on the road in the first place. We were planning to head off the grid and we knew we were in for some wild weather, but the forecast for waves looked really good and we were frothing. So we stocked up on some supplies that would see us out for as long as possible.
Get my feet wet. That was too easy.
That was way too easy.
Was it anticlimax?
It was a bit of an anticlimax. But now we've got this, so this is the real climax.
That's not.
Hands are getting cold. Should we set up?
Woo.
Get into the red line? Start the fire?
Woo.
The weather down south can be so unpredictable and it'd change at any moment. It kind of felt like whenever we'd start to get a little bit comfortable, we'd be pretty quickly caught off guard. Wow, look at the cold. Wow, do you reckon we're going to be alright? Look at the lean on my bike. Whoa!
Oh, it's so windy.
I can see ice. God.
Want sunshine?
Coldest night of Look at the ice. You're kidding. It's snowing. Look at it. Look at it. It's fully snowing. Oh my god. Oh my god, look.
It's proof.
Possum fur. I'd hardly had a dry wetsuit since we'd been on the road, and as the days got shorter and colder, it was starting to take a little more motivation to get in the water. so cold right now.
Mate, just stop talking about it and just put your ready on.
Oh my god, that was the best I've ever seen the whole time. So epic having our new little base camp, really felt like home, and being able to come and go with lighter bikes made it easier for us to search and surf new waves. But even being as mobile as we were, there were still a few places that we could only access by foot. Not the rebel dove. Oh man. Oh, look at that one. Whoa. Oh. It's either going to be success or carnage. Or both.
Yeah, a bit of successful carnage, I reckon. That road looks really far away, and then that's about halfway.
We were pretty jazzed to have had some fun waves to ourselves, but we knew it was going to be a fine line to make it back to camp before the weather had set in. In classic New Zealand fashion, things were turning pretty grey pretty quick. It had been a rough and wet few days. Ishka's tent had flooded out the first heavy night of rain, and just about all of our gear was soaking wet. We were pretty content with our little shelter. By the time the sun had poked its head just long enough for us to dry some undies and stretch the legs, we were keen to pack up camp and keep rolling. We were really looking forward to what the deep south had to show us, and we were eager to get on the road. The countryside was constantly changing, so wild and spectacular. Some of the areas we were driving through were absolutely mind-boggling, the kind of things you see in magazines and on postcards. This is what inspired us to travel to New Zealand in the first place, and that humbling feeling of being surrounded by it all was something that I'll never forget. A good mate of ours had highly recommended we check out one of his favourite areas. The end of the day was creeping up on us, and we were pretty tired, but determined to get to a little hut that was tucked up in the mountains. And the idea of sleeping with a roof over our head in complete solitude after the past few rough days we'd had sounded pretty bloody good. The little trail we were following was amazing but challenging. It had been a long day on the bikes. We didn't really know where we were going, but it was getting late. We really didn't want to be riding in the dark. We passed a hunter along the track that told us we didn't have far to go, but it was turning into a bit of a wild goose chase, and we were getting tired and losing daylight. We both had this weird feeling about the guy's advice, but neither of us knew any better, and we were determined to get to the hut before dark. It felt like every 10, 20 metres we'd get to another puddle or another crossing, and we had to stop, check the levels. We were getting pretty tired and over it.
This looks really gnarly. There's like big rocks and stuff. I'm gonna try that. Yeah. My feet are wet. Pretty much ready to like.
Camp,
Yeah, we're pretty deep. By the time it was dark, we were feeling pretty defeated from the day, kind of tripping on where we were. We had a look at the offline maps. We were nowhere near the heart.
I wasn't tripping on it at the time.
Not at the time at all.
Now looking back on it, looking at the offline maps and seeing where we are and how grossly misguiding his guidance was.
More just like...
And how gnarly the road was after when like we made it sound like we'd just done the gnarliest bit and then it got way gnarlier and nowhere near where we wanted to go.
He was too
like
smart and savvy. He's like if he's a bad person, he's a really, really good bad person. So I thought you were being actor. I thought I was the biggest pussy.
Nothing makes sense for what he said. I don't know.
Tell you a secret?
What?
Put my knife in my top pocket after that. I already know that he's got a way bigger knife and a gun, so...
Yeah, well that's the thing. He's definitely got a gun.
Maybe he's just... Then, like, I got myself like worked out, and then I was like, well, we're in New Zealand, we're in hunting, like, maybe he's mad, he's just not a normal person.
And we're like, on these Hellman motorbikes, he probably thinks that we're...
Hellman,
and we're just like full city bitches.
Not city bitches, we are full pussies.
That's worse than my pasta spill the other night.
I'm so off it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I reckon you can almost sacrifice that stuff on the grass there because...
Maybe you thought we were mad dogs. I'm some nerd with like glasses
maybe
and you got a bob.
I was seem like I'd made a point to try and seem sort of rattled so that he didn't think we were mad dogs.
Why is that?
What do you mean?
Should always seem like we're mad dogs. Don't you reckon?
Well, not when you want someone to give you realistic advice. If they think you're mad dogs, they'll just make a real gnarly road. Be like, oh yeah, no, you guys will be sweet.
That's what he said. He thought we were mad dogs. We're on motorbikes. We like had our helmets on. We're like looking like mad dogs. We're mad dogs. Look what we're eating.
Yeah, he could vandalise our shit, but he's not gonna.
He's not gonna he's not a vandaliser. He's not like a...
Well, if he doesn't find us,
he'll find us. He's got like infrared and shit.
He's not a predator, dude.
He is a hunter. He's a hunter. Well, turns out we woke up alive with all limbs attached. Funny how you get in your head sometimes. That's kind of the beauty of being somewhere so remote. The feeling of vulnerability adds so much more to the adventure. And waking up in the morning, it was hard to imagine what was going through our heads the night before. We never made it to the hut either. the engine light going, and 10,953 kilometres. Full tank of fuel. We'd put a lot of pressure on ourselves to cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time, and as we should have well and truly learnt by now, plans don't always go to plan. What's going on?
The truck's flipped. The road's closed, but they should open again soon.
The latest one I've had is it's going to be updated at 4.
There's a heap of cars. I mean, you'll be amazed at how many cars are on the other side too. There's hundreds.
We got problems too.
You guys overheating as well?
Nah, we've done a clutch or something.
Oh, fuck me.
What? There you go, a bit of light, does that?
Cheers, mate. Yeah, just, you know, just fixing some shit.
Working.
Right.
And there's no traffic. Should we punch it before the next stitch up happens?
Yep. Turns out we had a few more issues and we weren't as handy on the tools as we thought.
Yeah, well, I'll cut that battery in there and we'll see what happens with that.
Thanks so much.
No, you're all right, mate.
It had been a long day and we'd had a bit of a bad run. By now we'd travelled over 12,000 kilometres, and considering we'd only had a couple of minor issues, we thought ourselves pretty lucky. But we needed to keep moving to get there before the morning, which meant breaking our only rule of not riding through the night.
Comfy?
Bright out there. Shit, hey.
How good was that mission? From the other side of the island. Driving through the night, almost crashing, getting stuck, traffic by an accident, breaking down. All for this.
I'd had a couple of close calls with a possum and a guardrail the night before, and as rattled as I was to get back on the bike, we were convinced that if we kept chasing the swell, our luck would have to eventually turn. We knew it was going to be a wet and cold ride to the waves, so I thought I'd put on my wetsuit early to kill two birds with one stone. Which was a great idea until we got a few hours down the road and I had to lighten the load a little.
That snow. Oh, just what are you doing to us?
It's on up.
Oh, you clown.
Best worst idea ever. I can't even put my fingers to do this up. I'm thinking about putting my weddy gloves under my motor clutch, just trying, even though I can't move. But that was like really, really painful.
Yeah.
Please lift the tap in my glove. In reality, it was our coldest, wettest, roughest day yet. I think I ended up spending about 15 hours in my wetsuit, and I didn't even end up surfing because the waves were a complete write-off by the time we got to the beach. We were pretty over it by the time we found some shelter that night. So we had like a really, really rough day, and we checked ourselves in. And we've made up a temporary drying room in the bathroom. We sort of got too far ahead of ourselves, thinking we were going to be surfing and getting good waves these couple of days, but we've accepted defeat and we've surrendered in this little hotel room.
Never trust in New Zealand weather forecast.
You know what they say?
It's supposed to be sunny this afternoon.
4 seasons in one day. You around there? Right.
Why are you moving so quick?
We got caught off guard slothing around in the morning, thinking that the waves were going to be a complete mess. But as quickly as things had turned bad for us before, this time we had a little luck on our side, and we stumbled across this perfect little setup all to ourselves. We were so stoked. We were feeling so content after that first little session. It was just so nice few days. We lazed around in the sunshine, thawing out and soaking it all in. We were in the most beautiful part of the country with not a soul in sight and nowhere else we needed to be. It was just turning into one of those special days that everything was falling into place.
such a special day and a perfect night under the stars without a cloud in the sky laying next to the fire. We were nearing the end of our trip and it was time to start heading north on the home stretch. Everything felt like it was going our way and we're on such a high. Our only concern now was crossing back over the pass where we had that tough time on the way down, and Ishka had that really close call with an oncoming car.
Went from the worst ride to the funnest ride.
So fun.
How good was that?
Wow.
So nice reflecting on just how incredibly lucky we were to be here in the first place. Our journey around New Zealand also became a journey within ourselves, and we learned a lot along the way. From what started a pipe dream, turned into an experience that will last a lifetime. And I think some of the most important things that I've learnt overall is to make the most out of what you have, be present, and not take life too seriously.
Patagonia is so kind of raw and powerful, and I'm just fortunate enough to be here to witness a part of it.
Para mí, Patagonia es días de sol, días de lluvia, días de nieve. Es naturaleza en un 100%.
Es un lugar donde se mantienen las tradiciones, es un lugar mágico.
This place is tough, and something about that makes it super beautiful.
Patagonia is a sparsely populated region at the southern end of South America, shared by Argentina and Chile. In this video, Kristen from Be My Travel Muse and I are going to take you on a journey to the most impressive landscapes in and around the southern section of the Andes, featuring the lake region, the fjords of the Pacific Ocean, the most iconic mountain ranges, and the Patagonian ice fields with their impressive glaciers. Join us hitchhiking to the most remote areas of the region, be our trekking companion, and most importantly, enjoy the scenery. This is the Patagonia Expedition. After traveling through Patagonia in 2013 and documenting that trip on a low-quality camera, I always wanted to come back with better equipment and more time to visit all the places I've missed and to revisit those spots that blew my mind. 3 years later, I came up with a rough itinerary based on my previous adventures, and I teamed up with fellow travel blogger Kristen Addis from Be My Travel Muse after working together on video projects in Finland, Austria and Northern Ireland. Instead of going from south to north, I wanted to do it the other way around this time, starting in Bariloche, Argentina, and finishing in Torres del Paine, Chile, over the course of altogether 8 weeks, with many outdoor adventures in between. After spending a few days in Buenos Aires to adjust, we took a domestic flight south. Patagonia starts a bit further north of Bariloche in Argentina. Located inside the Nahuel Huapi National Park, Bariloche, with its combination of mountains, lakes and green forests, is the perfect place to start this whole adventure. Okay guys, we start this Patagonia adventure here in Bariloche, which is also famous for its chocolate.
All the chocolate, including the chocolate-covered raspberries.
Bariloche is not only famous for its chocolate.
It's also famous for the 7 lakes.
The best way to see the numerous lakes around Bariloche is a road trip. So we rented a car and drove along the Ruta de Siete Lagos till San Martín de los Andes. Right guys, we are on the way to the most beautiful viewpoint of Bariloche, close to Bariloche, called Cerro Campanario. It only takes about 20 minutes if you are in good shape. And as we are in good shape, it will only take us 25 minutes.
Not in good shape.
Mountain goat Kristen is making her way up.
Hola chicos, we're about to do our first hike.
And for this one, we chose the trek to the Tronador from Pampa Linda. Vámonos! The trek we are doing is actually also doable in one day, but then you only get to see the beginning of the glacier. We want to see more, this is why we hike up to the Refugio Otto Mailing. And we will camp out there to put our outdoor gear to a proper test before we hike into more difficult terrain. And I think it's a good start to camp out next to a glacier.
The Tronador.
There it is, the Tronador. And here you can see where we started. Woo!
It's really beautiful.
Over there. This is Pampalinda. This is the starting point. Ha! We're such good hikers. It took us only 4 hours. We're almost there. The last part was a bit rocky and very steep, but now
we're next to the glacier.
Here it is, the glacier. And there is our refugio, and we will camp next to that.
We made it to the Refugio Otto Mailing.
This is the building here, and we're camping right next to that. Good morning. It was really cold tonight, but the good thing about this spot is you get rewarded in the morning because the sunrise here is pretty cool. Good morning, Kristen. It's time to move on. Goodbye, Otto Mailing Refugio. We're going down to see this glacier here from the bottom because there are a lot of waterfalls. Let's do this. To the glacier and to see the glacier, it's an hour more and then we head back. So when we head back we have 3 hours left to catch our bus. Kristen, are you ready to do a bit more trekking?
Oh yeah!
Oh yeah! And we are back in Pampalinda. Enjoyable hike, Kristen.
Yeah, it was beautiful, but it was long, about 40 kilometers.
And we can still see the Tronador where we just came from. It's back there in the clouds. So we just made it back in time. So I would say, cheers to an amazing hike.
Cheers. Hola from Catedral, and during the winter time this is the largest ski resort in South America.
And we're going up with the lift today to do a hike. We are going to Refugio Frey. Alright guys, we made it to the top of Cerro Catedral.
And yesterday we were over there at the Tronador.
So after rock climbing, we're now at the intersection where it goes down to Frey from here, to the lagoon where we have lunch. Alright guys, we made it
to the Refugio Frey.
And we're heading back. On the next day, it was time for us to leave Bariloche for Chile. On a 6-hour lasting bus journey, we crossed the border and drove via Osorno to Puerto Varas, where we prepared for our hitchhiking adventure along the Carretera Austral. The road number 7 is a true paradise for adventure seekers in South America. Located in the south of Chile, the Carretera Austral is a predominantly unpaved road that connects the most remote areas of the country. From Puerto Montt in the north, more than 1,200 kilometers to Villa O'Higgins in the very south. Until the 1970s, this part of the continent was only accessible by air transport or by boat. The construction of the Carretera Austral was commenced in 1976 under the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet in order to strengthen the Chilean presence in these isolated territories and to ensure the land connection of the remote communities to the rest of the country. Nowadays, the Carretera Austral is the most scenic route through Patagonia, characterized by dense forests, secluded fjords, massive glaciers, powerful rivers and steep mountains. When I hitchhiked the entire stretch from south to north in 2013 for the first time, I only had about a week, and I missed a lot of the natural wonders along the way. Therefore, our plan was to spend about 3 weeks to get from Puerto Montt to Villa O'Higgins by thumb, to get in touch with locals, fellow adventurers, and to do a couple of treks and tours along the way. But for the first stretch, from Puerto Montt to Chaiten, we chose public transport, as we needed to take a couple of ferries to cross through the fjords. Covering the first part of the Carretera Austral adventure.
And the next part we're going to hitchhike down to the most remote part of South America.
But first up is Chaiten. To get from the start of the Road 7 in Puerto Montt to Chaiten, you have to make 3 long ferry crossings through the fjords of Patagonia and its temperate rainforest. These are particularly impressive at the Pumalin Park, which is situated between Hornopiren and Chaiten. It is one of the first conservation projects by the American Douglas Tompkins, founder of the North Face, who bought large areas of land in this region to put them under protection. So we made our way to Chaiten, which was destroyed by a volcano. When?
8 years ago.
8 years ago. So in May 2008, the Chaiten volcano, which is over there in the back, you can't see it because of the clouds. This volcano erupted after 900 years of inactivity, and it basically destroyed the whole city by a big flood. So the ash came down, it damped the river, which we are walking next to right now, and then made the river overflow. But the whole city was evacuated before, so nobody was killed, but the whole city was destroyed. And now, 8 years after, it comes back to life. You have a lot of construction areas here around. They built new streets, and it seems a lot of inhabitants came back to live again in their old city. We're packing our bags and we're heading out to the first day of hitchhiking. Yay! Yay! So it begins. The first stretch hitchhiking the Carretera Austral. Look at us. We look like turtles. We did the first stretch on the Carretera Austral hitchhiking. It was Christian who took us from Chaiten here to Villa Santa Lucia. How was the ride, Kristen?
Bumpy.
It was really bumpy because the asphalt road turned into a gravel road, and this is what is waiting for us for most of the Carretera Austral.
So we still had about an hour's drive left to go on the day, and unfortunately we were stuck for about 8 hours trying to get a ride. There was a lot of competition. There were a lot of people waiting there also trying to get a ride, but as everyone else kind of gave up, we stuck around, and just as we were thinking maybe we were going to quit, we were able to get a ride.
After 8 hours of waiting, we made it to La Junta, and now we try to find a hosteria, but there's one.
Good morning from La Junta.
This is our starting point for today, and we want to go to Puyuhuapi, which is just 1 or 2 hours from here. So there are just 2 guys in front of us. This might be a good day.
We're waiting here in the rain for about 2 hours here in La Junta. There are not many cars.
Apart from all these hitchhikers, there are a few people who are more crazy than us. And these are the people who are on a bike.
Woo! Yeah!
Push it! Push it!
Good luck!
And it is still raining, but we switched our hitchhiking spot. And as you see, there are no cars. So we need to play the waiting game. Alright people, we're now in the back of the truck on the way from La Junta to Puyuhuapi. On the back of a truck.
We made it to Puyuhuapi.
And tomorrow we're gonna visit
the glacier.
Keolat. Good morning people. Sergio is the guy over there. He took us to the Keolat National Park, where he is the park ranger. And now we're gonna see the glacier. We're gonna hike up.
The Keolat National Park contains 1,500 square kilometers of glacier-capped mountains and virgin evergreen forests. An early hike up to the viewpoint is the best way to see the park's centerpiece.
We made it to the top!
And this behind me is the glacier Keolat. So, what does the chef recommend today?
Palta sandwich. Sandwich with palta, tomate, a little bit of chicken breast, and a big portion of mayonnaise. And now we do it like we always do it. We try to get back via hitchhiking. 20 kilometers. What shouldn't be missed when you're traveling the Carretera Austral Patagonia? Good food. And so we treat ourselves today with fish from the region and steak from the region. And of course, wine from the region. Cheers! Good morning from rainy Puyuhuapi. Our plan for today is to get from Puyuhuapi to Coyhaique. And this is our last view, hopefully, to Puyuhuapi. Friends of hitchhiking and adventures, we just had the most uncomfortable ride on this whole trip. We were in the back of a pickup truck and thought it's maybe a good idea to squeeze in between motorcycles and bicycles. How was it?
Then everything went numb, and these are not paved roads, there's potholes everywhere, so we were just...
This bumpy ride took us to the Bosque Encantado, which is here, but it's also very wet. It's still raining, we're totally soaked. Yeah, we're waiting for the sun now. Alright guys, we're again in the back of a pickup truck, and this time Celine and Stanley took us. They're standing over there. Isn't it adorable?
The ride on the back of Celine and Stanley's pickup truck turned out to be the most beautiful, as the sun finally came out and we got to enjoy an open panoramic view of the incredible landscape from the Bosque Encantado all the way down to Coyhaique, a stretch of altogether 160 kilometers.
We made it to Coyhaique.
And this is our ride. Bye. We are on the road again. We're leaving Coyhaique today after a few days relaxing here, charging up, and we're heading to Via Cerro Castillo.
Woohoo!
Which is somewhere there in the back. You see these mountains? As we found our ride, it's Cesar. Brings us to Via Cerro Castillo. We go hiking tomorrow.
Cesar not only made a few stops to show us his favorite spots along the way, he also told us that he is in the process of building a hostel in Via Cerro Castillo to share the beauty of his region with travelers from all around the world.
So we're now at the construction area of Cesar's future hostel. Which is here?
Good morning. Today we're about to hike to the Cerro Castillo.
This is the mountain over there, but first we're gonna have breakfast. So we got our water resources and now we're ready to go uphill.
The day hike to Cerro Castillo is an alternative to the beautiful 4-day trek from Horquetas to Via Cerro Castillo.
This is Via Cerro Castillo, that's where we came from. Ooh, and now we're up here. It's quite exhausting. 1,000 meters of elevation. This down there was pretty impressive. But now look what I found here.
We made it!
We made it!
Cerro Castillo is a jagged rocky peak located within the Cerro Castillo National Reserve. Castillo means castle in Spanish, and the steep basalt walls of the mountain indeed make it look like one. On its sides are a few small glaciers and lakes fed by them.
That was nice, but now it's time to head back down to the valley to Via Cerro Castillo. So this is Cerro Castillo and we're back in town. So we found dinner and beer. Good morning guys, we're up for going down to the next village, to Puerto Rio Tranquilo today, via hitchhiking.
And rule number 1 about hitchhiking, never do so on an empty stomach.
Oh yeah.
Hello! So we are talking to you from Richard and Penny's car. They picked us up about 15 minutes into the hitchhike, which was good because the road was going to close in an hour and a half.
And we got a beautiful scenic ride.
Alright, we got dropped off where we wanted to be tonight, in Puerto Rio Tranquilo. It's time to show you what traveling really is like when you do this kind of things here, because you don't find lavanderias all the way, you have to wash your stuff. Next door is Kristen doing her laundry.
Lavanderia.
This is the lavanderia de la casa. The homemade laundry. Alright, and here is the situation with electricity. Like most of the times you just have one plug. So if we convert in the plug to plug in the power cube, which has all these outlets.
Hola from Puerto Rio Tranquilo.
We are back with Pato, who's down there preparing the boats. And you might remember that place because I was here 3 years ago when Pato was my last lift when I came from the other side. When I came from Villa O'Higgins, he took me to Puerto Rio Tranquilo and later on took me out on these boats. And now I met up with him again to do exactly the same thing.
The Marble Caves are an unusual geological formation located at the center of the General Carrera Lake, which is also the second largest lake of Chile. They represent a group of caverns, columns and tunnels formed into monoliths of marble which have been formed by wave action over the last 6,200 years.
So now we can see the dock. So we're back in safe harbor. How was it?
Awesome. Beautiful.
We're today whoopala, on an excursion because we're gonna see the glacier Exploradores. So we're now on our way. It's like about a 4-hour hike to get to the ice with our guides. This is Claudio, one of our guides. We're standing on the ice with our crampons on, and now we're gonna explore.
The Exploradores Glacier is situated on the northeastern slope of Monte San Valentin inside the Laguna San Rafael National Park and is a part of the northern Patagonian ice field. This ice field is the smaller of two remnant parts in which the Patagonian ice sheet in the Andes Mountains of Lower South America can be divided. Nowadays, it is completely contained within the boundaries of Laguna San Rafael National Park. But once, the Patagonian ice sheet was an extensive ice sheet that covered all of Chilean Patagonia and the westernmost parts of Argentine Patagonia during the Quaternary glaciations. Today, with its glaciers largely in retreat and only an area of 4,200 square kilometers, the northern Patagonian ice field is still the second largest continuous mass of ice outside of the polar regions.
Time to explore some ice caves. We're going now in the cave.
The early bird.
Catches the ride to?
Hopefully via O'Higgins.
So we're leaving Puerto Rio Tranquilo, this beautiful place at Lake General Carrera. And we're hopefully going to Cochrane and later on to Villa O'Higgins because this is where we need to catch the boat to get to El Chalten. So we are leaving Puerto Rio Tranquilo, this time on a bus.
And the reason why is because, number one, there's not much traffic going the way that we need to go down south. And number two, there's a bunch of cops and they're stopping people who are picking up people on the back of their trucks. So that makes it pretty hard for hitchhikers.
So we're off to Cochrane now.
Buenos dias.
From Cochrane, we take the bus early in the morning to Villa O'Higgins because it's the same situation as in Puerto Rio Tranquilo. So we thought we'd just take the bus. So 300 kilometers and then we're at the end of the Carretera Austral. So we're one step closer to Villa O'Higgins. We're now on Puerto Yungay where we take the ferry, which is coming there in the back, you see that? And then it's like 1 or 2 hours more. arrived in Villa O'Higgins, which is the last village on the Carretera Austral, and we're gonna go up for the sunset to show you Villa O'Higgins from above. Ooh, look at this.
Villa O'Higgins itself is a very special place. To give you an idea, we asked Philly, the owner of the Moscow hostel we stayed at, to tell us why she decided to move here.
Principalmente fue por un cambio de vida, que siempre estuvo en mis planes, salir a un lugar más pequeño. Y cuando conocí Villa O'Higgins, que está dentro de la región de Aysén, para mí fue el lugar perfecto. Me gusta la montaña, me gusta el clima frío y me gusta la tranquilidad. Y el trabajo que tengo me permite disfrutar de la gente, de distintas experiencias de vida, pero a la vez disfrutar el lugar perfecto que es para mí, lo que es naturaleza, verde, agua, frío. Patagonia para mí es mi libertad.
Good morning from Villa O'Higgins. We got invited for an asado yesterday night. We got up a little bit later today, and we had quite a big breakfast because
We are going over there to the Mirador to see the Southern Patagonian ice field.
oh yeah. So we saw about 3 miradors now, and we're now on the way to number 4, which is called Mirador Alta Vista. And the walk is quite scenic. Look at this. Look at this landscape. These dogs are awesome. They are showing us the way. When we are lost, they just go into the front and show us the way. And then they are waiting for us. Fresh water from the glacier. Okay people, I made it up, and there, over there is the Patagonian ice field. Quite a view. We are on our way back to Villa O'Higgins. We're already a bit hungry. Time for a chocolate break. Chocolate is a winner on tracks.
Good morning, Villa O'Higgins.
We're about to cross over to Candelaria Masia today, and we're gonna see the O'Higgins Glacier. It seems we made it to the end of the Carretera Austral.
The O'Higgins Lake is shared by Chile and Argentina and has a surface area of 1,013 square kilometers. The lake is the deepest in the Americas, with a maximum depth of 836 meters near O'Higgins Glacier. Its characteristic milky light blue color comes from rock flour suspended in its waters. The O'Higgins Glacier, located in the Bernardo O'Higgins National Park, is one of the principal glaciers of the southern Patagonian ice field. The summit of the active Lautaro volcano is the top of the accumulation zone of the glacier. The bulk of the glacier is part of the icefield plateau. It flows eastward into O'Higgins Lake and is about 2 kilometers wide at the terminus.
We're on the way to the border control. Before we cross the border, for like about almost the whole day, 22 kilometers, Yeah, and the first 16 kilometers we will walk without our luggage.
Yeah, but the last 5 we have to take it ourselves because we thought there were horse quarters, but I guess they have the day off.
Yes,
so we're gonna carry like 20 kilos each of stuff for about 5Ks. So I don't know. Good practice for tourist alpine, I guess.
Oh yeah. We're walking through no man's land for 6 kilometers already.
Yeah, we're literally in 2 places at once.
And the trees here have Chilean flags.
Very patriotic.
Cheers, Patagonia! After hiking for about 16 kilometers, we made it to the actual border. Over there is... We see already the Lago del Desierto, and in the back this is the Fitzroy.
We finished the day by crossing the Lago del Desierto. This lake has been the subject of a territorial dispute between Argentina and Chile, solved favorably for Argentina in 1994. After spending the night at the southern shore, we hitchhiked the remaining 37 kilometers to El Chaltén, which was built in 1985 to help secure the disputed border with Chile. Today it is Argentina's trekking capital and one of the most beautiful hiking areas in Patagonia.
Good morning, El Chaltén. It is time for some day hikes.
Today we're gonna hike to the Laguna Torre.
So we are halfway through, walking through the flat area, and we can see the Cerro Torre. So we made it to the Laguna Torre, and it's the first time I'm seeing these towers without clouds.
The Cerro Torre is the highest peak in a 4-mountain chain and a world-famous climbing spot. The top of the mountain often has a mushroom of rime ice formed by the constant strong winds, increasing the difficulty of reaching the actual summit.
Good morning once again from El Chaltén. We're about to do all the hikes in El Chaltén, and today
the Hummel circuit.
The Hummel circuit. So we go to the park rangers to demonstrate our harnesses, because we need to cross rivers with these harnesses. And then we're about to go on our first stretch, which should take us like 7 hours, to Lago Toro. This is Joachim, and he will join us on the Hummel hike. Yay! These are the energy bars for the hikers. We are hiking down here along the river to our campsite, which is over there.
Making friends with the locals.
Making friends with the locals, but maybe this could be dinner, Kristen. Should we switch dinner plans? After 15 kilometers of hiking, we finally arrived at our first campsite at Lago Toro. Tent setup complete. We're having breakfast. Is porridge and manteco. Good morning from Lago Toro. We are on our way up to the Glaciar Rio Tunnel, and we want to go today on the Paso del Viento. And we're now searching for the way to cross the river, because last time I crossed the river actually over there where this guy is, and then went up into these rocks. But this time there is a rope, and we have our harnesses with us, so we can go up here and find a rope, and then we can just go over to the other side. Alright, we made it to the rope. So it's Christine's turn now over this raging river here. So this is where we just crossed the river. Alright, how was the zip lining?
It wasn't as bad as we thought.
We're now in the rocky part. We're climbing up to see the glacier, which is over there. The glacier Rio Tunel, where all this water comes from. We try to find our way over these rocks. It's hard, there are no marks or anything. Just these little stone hills, these stupas. But they're not here all the time and it's hard to find them in this terrain. After hiking all the way up, you know what's in order? Food! Ooh, last part up and I feel like a mountain goat. Look at that. Alright guys, we made it! Whoa! This side is pretty cool, but look at that side. And when we're over there, we see the whole ice field. So this is the South Patagonian ice field.
This ice field extends 13,000 square kilometers and is the world's third largest reserve of fresh water.
So still, these are our best friends. We're trying to find our way down to the Campamento Paso del Viento. We set up the tent and now it's time for dinner. Good morning from Campamento Paso del Viento in the sunrise. Today is day number 3 and we are about to go to the next paso, Paso Huemul, and then down to the lake Lago Vietma. Alright, before we get to the Paso Huemul, we walk all along the Vietma Glacier, which is over there. You see that? The ice here coming out of the South Patagonian ice field is the Vietma Glacier, which is carving into the Vietma Lake. And this is the place where we will camp tonight, right at the shore of the lake. We stopped our hike to get some calafate berries to improve our breakfast for tomorrow. So we're walking with the GPS now to find our way.
Vietma Glacier is one of the icefield's 48 outlet glaciers that have more than 20 square kilometers of icefield area each.
Alright people, we're about to cross the Paso Huemul, but it actually feels more like the Paso del Viento today. It's really, really windy, but it's just a few hundred meters left up there. Yes, we made it over the pass. And now we're going to the other side, where we see now the lake, and suddenly the wind stopped and we have the view to the lake. This whole pass is a challenge.
Is there no part of this circuit that is pleasant to hike?
You need to earn these views.
The beginning was cool, but like the rest has just been a total beast.
We're almost finished. A rainbow is leading the way to our camp. And then we can see the Vietma Glacier. Alright, we found some ice from the glacier Vietma. So what you do when you find ice? You should lick it. It's really antique, the taste. Good morning from the campsite next to the lake Lago Vietma. We got up early to see the sunrise, and we were surprised by a lot of icebergs today in the bay because of really strong winds in the night, which pushed the icebergs into this bay. Alright, it's breakfast time with a view. Hey. Last stretch. We're going from the Vietma Lake up and back to El Chaltén.